Hello, everybody, and welcome to this evening's stream. Let me just reposition myself here. Things change. Things change, I tell you. Anyway, right. So, where are we? Welcome to everybody who's in chat. Some of you for the first time. Good to see you. Some of you for not a very long time. Even better to see you. Thank you for coming back and stopping in and saying hi. We've got our fabulous moderator in chat, Laura Bones, 79. So watch out. Be nice. Laura is amazing. And so, yes, this is, as Chu asked, this is my first time. Is this fully live or premiere? No, this is brand new, fully live. Every single mistake I make from now on is not scripted. Okay, so we have some wonderful music that is provided by Monument Studios and their Fantasy Plus app, which you can find at fantasyplus.app, one word. I'll type it into chat for you, fantasyplus.app, and they've generated some beautiful music, which we have to set the volume for, because the music resets its volume whenever we launch the browser, for now, anyway. And I think let's start with this. So you tell me, is the volume appropriate, or is the music getting too intrusive as we marvel at the glory of the stars? This is a Star Trek style game. We are using the Star Trek Modifius rules for their Captain's Log, which is a solo version of their 2D20 system. And the way that it works is very simple. We have two statistics as indicated on this character sheet, which you can see here. And we've got attributes and disciplines, and you choose an attribute, you choose a discipline, you add the two values together, and then you roll 2d20. And so I've got 2d20 here, and you roll them, and the numbers have to be less than the value that you calculated. So if we had taken control and engineering, for example, that would have been 13. We would have had to have rolled under 13. We've got an 11, and we have a 12 there, so both of them were under, and that's great. That's great. So there we are. So I see some people are saying it's good, some people are saying it's a bit much. Don't worry, it doesn't. This is opening music, so this would be stuff that you'd. Let's just drop it to that level. How does that sound? Does that sound a bit better? I'm headphoning it tonight. Too much. It's great, nice washing out, says Victor Smith. This music is amazing. Music could be a little bit quieter. Okay, I have just dropped that volume a little bit. Let me know what you think. Music coming in, and Monument Studios did this. They reached out to me and said, hey, we do this amazing music, and they truly do. People are saying it's still too loud. Let me take down just a notch. How's that sounding? Hopefully a little bit better. And then we can get on with it. So what are we doing? So our amazing crew and Captain Adara, the Andorian, have travelled to Sintrell 3 and a little colony called Baxter's Dawn to investigate some strange goings-on. And they have found some strange goings-on. Principally that there appears to be a doppelganger of the USS Wellington. That's the Excelsior-class starship that they own, that they are on. And its crew have been masquerading or have been infiltrated, or the doppelgangers have been travelling to Sintrell 3 and claiming all of their supplies. So the crew started to investigate, but at the same time they heard rumors about a rebellion on the planet. So the crew split. First officer and the helmsman and an infiltration specialist, Taval, headed down to the planet's surface to try and find out what was going on, whilst at the same time the captain launched an investigation into these doppelgangers, and that pushed them into very different directions. And those different directions, unfortunately, were a lot darker than perhaps had been anticipated by the captain or the crew. That is because they found an alien species. And the first officer was taken by the alien species as well, taken prisoner. Now, the first officer has managed to escape to a degree. They're still inside the complex of the aliens, and they've discovered something unusual. These weird tentacular aliens have got 4-year-old medical records of the USS Wellington, and there's no reason why they would have these medical records. There's no understanding it. At the same time, the crew of the Wellington engaged with an alien's ship, but it self-destructed almost immediately, so they could get no information out of that. And so, why? And those of you with really sharp eyes might have seen my little notes there. Why was all of this going on? Eventually, the captain found on the 4th moon of Sintrel, the 3rd moon of Sintrel 4, I should say, they have found an outpost used by these pirates that contains 60-year-old technology from the Federation, as a matter of fact. And so that's where our story picks up, with the captain still remaining on ship, but he has sent his chief engineer, John Smith, the head of the Makos, the marine detachment, if you will, of the Wellington, and a team to infiltrate the moon. Now, I asked you last week, why did I choose to give the medical files, why did I choose to make them 4 years old? And why did I choose 60-year-old technology? Well, hopefully tonight the answer will be revealed. If you've been mulling it over, thinking about it, well, I'll give you a little hint. And it's kind of already in the information that I've given you. It's to buy time. And that's all I'm going to say. So think about that. Why did I purposefully give the aliens the medical files of the crew that is 4 years old and the pirate's 60-year-old technology? It's to buy time. That's all I'm going to say for now. Right, and I mustn't scroll down any further because that's where my notes are. Okay, so every time we go through 5 different roles, we tick off one of these boxes, and that hurtles us towards our conclusion, or our intended conclusion anyway, using standard Star Trek tropes of Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, with a parallel story that comes together at the very end. And so that is where we find ourselves. Pacing backwards and forwards on the bridge of the Wellington, Adara looks at the communications ensign. The ensign simply shakes her head. Nothing from either awaiting. Finally, the captain breaks his silence. Helm, if we were to move the Wellington out of the range of the sensors of that base on the 3rd moon, would we be in range of Sintrel 3? I want to make absolutely sure that the first officer is not attempting to communicate with us. The helmsman does some calculations. I think that we would probably have a window of about maybe 10-15 minutes, sir, to get out of range of the moon and within range of Sintel 3. 15 minutes. The captain's antennae hang forlornly. It is a huge window of error just to get a message from the first officer. The resolution was that the first officer would communicate with the ship only once they had found something or were in trouble. Of course, being in trouble is unpredictable. Finding something, they had a regular window that they were supposed to check in on. Pacing backwards and forwards and unhappy with it, but also knowing that he can do nothing, Captain Adara hands the bridge over to the bridge officer and retires to his ready room to study what little information they have gathered thus far. The moon that the Makos have now infiltrated under the leadership of the chief engineer and John Smith is old. The technology with old-fashioned panels that look more like gemstones than the modern, sleek touch interfaces of ships currently serving in Starfleet does little to calm the chief engineer or the Mako. Now, if you remember, John Smith was supposed to have a Chino-Rusky Chinese-Russian accent, because that's what everybody chose. And so there we are. To answer Nordic Nug's music reviews, yes, this is solo TTRPG, but it's not really, because you folks are going to add in so much tonight. I'm going to be doing some polls, as you'll see shortly. And as a matter of fact, we've got to our first poll. John Smith holds up a fist, indicating that everyone should stop moving. The chief engineer briefly glances at her tricorder, then looks up at John Smith. The chief engineer, her human features illuminated in strong yellow by the lighting that is present in the small access way. Her tricorder doesn't seem to be giving much information. This is going to require a control of the tricorder, which is 7, and engineering, which is 4, so that's 11. So she's going to have to make an 11 check to see if she can determine what it is that the Mako has spotted. Oh, beautiful. 2 successes underneath the value that we needed. So that's fantastic. And with that, she gets to scan what is up ahead. And I'm going to leave that in your capable hands. I'm going to make a poll very, very quickly. What's up ahead? And I'm going to give you some options. I'm not going to tell you what those options are until the polls come up. And I'm going to keep it kind of cryptic. What else could it be? What else could it be? One more thing. Something weird, something odd, something that they would be using, knowing what they are. What are they doing? Oh, that's an interesting idea. No, it's not. No. Dumb idiot. That wouldn't work. No, I'm giving you 3 options. Sorry, I've got brain freeze. So 3 options it is. What is it that the chief engineer has found? There are 3 things there for you to choose from. A small horse. I love that. I didn't add that into the poll, damn it. So you decide. What is it? Is it bodies, energy, or liquids? This is very strange, she says in her inner monologue. The tricorder attempts to log on to a specific source, but what I am reading here does not make much sense. There is some detection of liquids, but this is also appears to be energized in some way. There may be some organic matter in here, but there's not a very lot there. These readings will take some time to compile, as we are not yet at half of the votes in. We're just short on half the votes. I need 3 more votes before we move forward. 3 more votes. If you haven't voted, head on over to the YouTube channel into chat. You should see the vote there if you don't see that. Sorry. One more minute. And we'll see what we can see. There we go. And that's the vote that we needed. No, we've got 1 more vote to go. We're on 14 votes. Remember to hit that like button if you are enjoying these shows. You want me to carry on. Always, if you want me to change topics, change things, free to voice that in the community polls or in the chat here. Is it important that liquids is not capitalized? Nope, absolutely not. I have dysgraphia. I can't see the different. I can't see letters and words. I just see the shape. So as long as it's an uprighty thing followed by another thing with a dot above it, it's absolutely normal for my brain. The votes are in. I'm closing the poll. Perplexed, the chief engineer looks at this reading. There are liquids just behind the panels in the walls. Very slowly, John Smith turns and points to a T-junction that communicates with the corridor that they're currently in. There's a door to the right, and that appears to have a liquid behind it. It looks like a greenish ooze of some kind. Quite jelly-like. To the left, the hatch descends down some stairs. There is an old sticker on the door that holds back the green ooze. The sticker is a biohazard. Large warning all over it. Written underneath is a word that causes our chief engineer possibly to freeze in her tracks. She needs to make an insight science check. That's 14. A critical success. A critical success. Richard Gilson, that's an excellent guess. But no, that's not the right answer. The word written underneath the warning sign is simple. It says Protomatter. The first officer and the helmsman are desperately trying to make their way out of this enclosure. They fled after scanning, trying to determine as much as they could, but finally logic prevailed, and the chief helmsman and the first officer managed to start making their way down the corridor once again, trying to evade their captors. Lots of people in corridors in this episode, apparently. Sandy holds up his hand. Not for silence, but to indicate that there is someone down the corridor. He points to his eyes. Then he points to his ears. And then he holds up just a single digit. Then a question to the first officer. And she nods. She wraps her hand firmly around a rather heavy retort that she picked up from the medical laboratory. Sandy does the same. He was holding that medical device. And quietly, he slips around the corner. This is going to take a fitness and security check on Sandy's behalf. This is the first roll of significance. Second roll of significance. The first one was the engineer. And so fitness and security, that's a 12. As he tries to sneak down the passageway. And he has a double fail. Oh, dead. Oh, dear. As he is sneaking down the corridor, the figure turns and looks at him. He freezes in his tracks. The first officer freezes in her tracks. Captain, what are you doing here? I don't understand. More importantly, sir, I did not realize you were joining us. Let's just see if the first officer realizes something. This is an insight and security, so she's got a 15. But because of the double failure of the helmsman, I'm going to reduce that by 2, so that puts her on 13. Well, that's a success. I was supposed to roll 2, I only rolled 1. And that's a success, so she gets double success. I think, Sandy, that you'll find that that isn't the captain, are you? The captain turns and looks from Sandy to the first officer and back again. Confusion written across his blue features. His white hair disheveled. Wearing a greyish unitard of some kind or other. Almost like a uniform, but casual in its design. The captain shakes his head. A chain of that strange silvery stuff leads from the captain's ankle to the wall. They're in a dead end. The helmsman looks to the first officer. What do we do with our captain? I'm not entirely sure. I don't think he is our captain. Captain, can you speak? And the captain looks at them and nods, but seems to shake his head slightly. Now, in the low light, it becomes apparent that the captain has bruises all over his features. Dark purple, angry swellings cover most of his body, and that is exposed anyway, that the crew can see. He places his finger to his lips. I think I know what's going on. But we have to take him with us. Oh, mon Dieu, Captain. We cannot possibly take him with us. What are we going... It is in no condition. 2 of us trying to get out of here is already difficult enough, but 3 of us. And how do we take that off of his... We don't have the polarizing... the thing... surely, Commander... Lieutenant, I mean... I don't even know your rank! I'm so confused right now! Lieutenant... Well, it's another choice for you. Another choice for you. Lots of polls tonight. Take the weird captain or leave him? And to answer the question, L. Ed, I used to really enjoy the old faster Star Trek RPG. Ship combat wasn't great. No, absolutely. The best Star Trek system that I have come across in terms of starship combat, in terms of crewing, in terms of that sort of thing, I have to say is the Decipher Star Trek that came out. The covers had photographs of the crew and that sort of thing. They had a couple of books that came out. I've got all of them on my shelf behind me. They were really, really good. But Modiphius's 2D20 system, it's actually very good. It's very good. I haven't had an opportunity to really get in and stuck in and play it. But like all role-playing games, the trick is with Star Trek, if your players are not Star Trek aficionados and who are really not into the lore, the question is, why are you playing Star Trek? Why not just play a sci-fi, a generic sci-fi that everyone can sort of make up as they go along, that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. Chu says, I said take, but part of me feels like they would just follow him. Well, let's see. Let's see. Poll is in, and the votes are in as well. Okay, take the weird captain. Great stuff. Just made their escape that much more difficult. Don't know why I went pirate there. Okay, so in that case then, I think it's time to change our atmosphere. The first officer gestures for the captain to follow. And our poor old helmsman has to dash ahead back to the laboratory in the hopes that they haven't been found. This is the third roll, and so this will require fitness 8 and security 4, so that's 12. We're okay. We're fine. 1 success, 1 failure. That's fine. The success is all that we need. Moments later, the helmsman returns with the device that they use to free themselves, and the captain, or whatever this is released. Now, how else can we possibly get out of here? Says the first officer to Sandy. The captain now points upwards, causing all of them to look up at a vent in the ceiling. Aboard the Moon, the team have left the door that has the word Protomatter written on it and have descended the stairs. A fairly large open space reveals itself to them. In the far distance there are crates and what appears to be a balcony overlooking a small cavern. The rest seems to be nothing but old disused cargo containers, equipment that's been ransacked decades ago and forgotten about. There is no sign of the crew, however, of this particular outpost. Quickly, the Makos do a sweep and eventually report all clear. Our head of Mako... Oh, wrong screen, sorry. Our head of Mako, John Smith, looks up at the engineer. We have not found very much here. What will your orders be? Don't know what happened with that accent. Don't know what happened. So Ergin looks around. I am not sure what is going on here or where this equipment is coming from. Do you have the means to get a message to the Wellington? I need to establish what is going on here. These crates, they have serial numbers, she says, pointing to the serial numbers placed on most of the boxes. Perhaps the Wellington's computer can find out where or what ship was recently attacked with these cargoes. This might give us some indicator as to what is going on. In the meantime, where are the crew? John Smith nods. Permission to send some of our team ahead. This will allow us to see where the crew are whilst securing comms with the ship. Ergin nods and then heads over to an active console. She starts to tap into it. I'm not hearing any music. There we go. As she taps into the console, numbers start to fly. This is our next check. I'm attempting to exit. Oh! Almost a perfect roll. Within moments, she has dug into the system. And she comes back. And that's our last check. We're now at midpoint. So now the crew should shift from a story perspective to being in the dark to being on track. Mr. Smith, you will let me know the moment that you have established communication with the Wellington. This cargo is all under consignment for a research outpost that the Federation was trying to set up here on Central, but it is very old. The databases haven't been updated in a very long time. there is a shout from one of the Makos. A body has been found. Ergin and John Smith head immediately over, and there, lying on what appears to be an old hoverbed, which is no longer floating at all, is a desiccated old corpse. Looking down at it, Ergin runs her tricorder over it. I am no doctor, so this would be control of the tricorder. No, let's say this would be, yeah, control and medicine, so 8. One success. I think this body is about 3 years old, based on the desiccation, but it's very unusual, don't you think, Captain Smith? The chief of the Makos looks down at the body. Now that you mention it, this does look... No, this does not make any sense. Why would... They both turn and look at each other. This is... We must establish communications with the Wellington immediately. Lieutenant Ergin urges the captain to set it up, and he does so with alacrity. After a moment, the rest of the Makos return. It appears as if the base itself has 2 levels. The level that they're currently on, and then another level which was added on recently. The technology is way more advanced, and there is a magnetically sealed door. It appears that this side of the facility is much disused, or hasn't been used in quite some time. With that, the communications are set up with Wellington almost straight away. Report! Finally, relief in the captain's voice is evident. Captain, we have some serial numbers of cargo under the consignment from Starfleet. I think it's an unofficial project, but one that Starfleet was behind or engaged with. I'm not sure. I'm transmitting those serial numbers now. It might give us some indicator as to whom or what a project was about. Furthermore, Captain, I believe we have found well, do you have a brother? Because if you do, I'm afraid I have bad news. I believe he has died 3 years ago, give or take a couple of months. We have found a corpse, very heavily desiccated, that looks almost identical to you. That's unusual, and no, I don't have any siblings currently alive. Thank you for that, Lieutenant. The lieutenant then continues to give the captain the full rundown of the outpost. Do you feel it's safe to attempt to gain access to the sealed side of the outpost, or would you prefer to withdraw? Asked the captain, ever respectful of eyes on the ground versus his own goals, should we say. So, another poll. Do we leave or do we stay and try and find out more information about what's going on? Let's see what happens. Whilst you are voting on that, and it looks pretty unanimous, the captain gets a message from the communications officer. Lieutenant Ergin, we've got a record of the cargo that you are talking about. It was not registered as stolen. It has a registration of delivery. The consignment was allocated to a Dr. Marcus. Carol Marcus, I believe. This was for a project which is classified. Nonetheless, it was recorded as delivered. Is there a Dr. Marcus present? Although the delivery date does state this is 2284-ish? 2282? The logs are not exactly accurate. Quite a lot was delivered to Central Station, I believe they were calling it at the time. We'll do some more digging, but that's what we found. The lieutenant still ponders her decision. Does she breach or does she leave? Got some votes in. I need 3 more votes if we are to get to our 50% requirement. And if I'm asking for too many votes, just say so in chat. Richard Gilson, David forged Mom's signature. Yeah, I like it. Someone knows their Star Trek lore. 12 votes. I'm going to close it. And there we go. We've closed it. 84% say we breach it. Captain, I feel that we owe it to the corpse, at the very least, to attempt to infiltrate even further. Very well. Proceed, but with caution. And I want Mr. Smith leading. Do not worry about me, Captain. I won't be leading any breaches. We'll let you know if we have anything else. In the meantime, Ergin out. Oh. Chu He Ham level 3. Thank you for that donation. I appreciate that. Quite a shocking name to see come back. Yeah, what is the current year? The current year we said was about 2340, somewhere around there. So there we are. And yeah, any excuse today, it's really cool. So there we are. There we are. I like votes. I don't want to spoil stuff. Well, here we go. Here we go. So yes, that's an old name that's come back to haunt some people, perhaps. Who knows? The helmsman and the first officer making their way down the passages. Are not making their way down the passages. They are quite literally looking up at a vent that this captain has pointed at. If you can hoist me up there, perhaps I can get out. And then, yes, let's see where we go. The first officer does the saddle with her hands, and soon enough, the helmsman has reached the grate. It's not sealed, it's simply held in place by a small amount of suction, and a simple pull pulls it free. Then it's a matter of scrabbling up, hands down to the wounded captain, who's then pushed up, and then finally pulling up Fenner Malik, the first officer of the ship. The ducts are crazy complex, but our team doesn't ever find this out, because as they advance down one of the access panels, there is a breeze that comes in, smelling of a rather curious licorice-like scent. They turn to the right and find that this vent is actually opening out onto the street. A swift kick, it pops open, and they crawl out into the late night air of Central 3. There are no alien creatures out here, but there are several confused Centralians looking at our odd bunch that has just emerged from the grating. Immediately, the first officer raises her hands in supplication, trying to defuse the situation before it gets out of hand. She does have law and culture as part of her existence, so I would say that this would be an insight and command role for her. So that's a 15. Oh, there is that dreaded 20. We've had 1s, but now we have a 20. And that means I need to go to the actual book itself. And I am going to the additional matrices to find out what happens there. Additional matrices. Where are we? Here at the gym. No, they've got so many different things here. Probability matrices. There we go. No. Right, here we are. We don't want downtime. We don't want mining. Where is it? Where is it? I've lost it! I've lost it! I mean, I never really had it, but, you know. I thought it was here. Generating conflict. We've done the mission type. All right. Well, all that we're going to do is... because I'm not going to spend... Oh, here we go. Complications. Right. And the PDF's broken. Well, that makes sense. That's just brilliant. Why is the PDF broken? On a live stream? I mean, it was bound to happen. It was bound to happen. And the book's on the bookshelf because, you know, I was like, no, I'll just use the digital. I'll go to the future. Anyway, I'm going to close that because thanks very much for playing. Not. And this complication is super simple, super easy. Our 3, in an attempt to supplicate the locals, end up being arrested as security are called, and with no communicators, no phases, there is very little that they can do but submit to being captured once again. Dear, dear, dear. I mean, that's what the dice are telling us. It's what the dice are telling us. So we've got to do what we're going to do, right? The captain is still pacing on the bridge. One away team he's heard nothing from for the entire day. The other away team has told him that they've found a dead body of his brother, or something similar. Dr. Carol Marcus, most of her research is in terraforming and biochemistry. That is at least all the information that can be found on Dr. Carol Marcus, wife of Captain James T. Kirk for a while, and mother of David Marcus, a renowned physicist and scientist, lost in an explosion or a spatial accident. Again, the information is incredibly sketchy, incredibly blurry. There's not much information there. And aside from that, these cargo containers were assigned legally and delivered to Dr. Carol Marcus. Why they were abandoned here and left ostensibly for no reason is unclear. Little word has come in from the lieutenant or the Makos that are currently storming the base. And so the captain paces yet again. Finally, after what seems ages, there is a communique. Shall I put it on screen, sir? Asks the now stand-in communications officer. Yes, says the captain, rather tersely. Appearing on screen is none other than our old friend von Bosk, the leader of Baxter's Dawn. Captain, you will forgive me for contacting you, but we appear to be in a rather difficult situation. Your first officer and another of your officers, and yourself, are currently languishing in one of our detention centers in the lower city. I am very confused. Would you repeat that last sentence? I am being held in one of your detention centers? As I live and breathe, Captain, I am not one for games or for foolishness. But the visual record that has been sent to my desk is quite accurate. For all intents and purposes, you are in the prison cell here on Baxter's Dawn. I would appreciate an explanation, Captain, since you maintain that you are not extorting us, and yet you appear to be everywhere in our system at the same time. You are not the only one. A third copy of myself has been found on an outpost on the moon of Sintrell 4. Equally unexplainable. I have a team investigating this outpost. If you would give me some time, I'm sure this can be cleared up. I beg your pardon. Captain, I will have your first officer and the crewman and yourself, or rather, transferred to a local detention facility here in the capital. I will make them more comfortable. They were found escaping from a disused factory, which has revealed itself to be it appears to have been used to spy on our government by an unknown faction. This is all very, very vexing. I will await your communication. If I have not heard from you within 24 hours, I am afraid we will have to take more drastic measures. Before the captain can respond, the communications with the planet is cut off. Get me Lieutenant Ergen. I need to understand exactly what's going on. They need to either resolve this or move on. Ergen responds that she is currently trying to unlock an electromagnetically sealed door, and it takes time. Thankfully, she's got focuses and power systems, so that's going to give her a +1, and this will be, I would say, a security and insight, reason check. So reason 11, security 2, 13, +1 for the power systems. So she's got to get underneath a 13 to get through this magnetically sealed door. And she does! Double success. The door hisses open, and immediately there is an exchange of phaser fire. Whoever runs the outpost obviously knew of their breach and has been waiting for them. The way the battle works is very, very simple. Each of the characters is assigned 5 wound blocks, if you will, and each success that the enemy gets, or each roll that is made, I should say, each success counts as a hit against the enemy, each failure counts as a hit against the person involved. So John Smith is in the front line, and John Smith is a regular Mako, so that means we will be using the Excelsior's values. This is what you do when NPCs are needed. You use the ship's values to determine that. And so John Smith is going to be using weapons of 8 and security of 2. He's not a very good Mako. Security of 2, he's going to be using 10 as his target. So that gives him a 50-50. So the opening salvo, John Smith fires his phasers at the enemy, and the enemy fire back. These lances of light streak across, and 1 hit each. 1 hit each. I'm going to keep track here, and we go 1 hit for the Federation, and 1 hit for the enemies. Phaser fire lances backwards and forwards. There's a blur, there's a sharp brightness. They continue to fire. Once again, 10 is our target. And again, a split. 1 each. Lieutenant Ergin desperately trying to figure out what she could do, but draws a blank as the phaser fire continues on either side. It is a dramatic and desperate moment. That's round 3. 2d20. 10 is the target. 1 hit. 1 hit. The Mako looks over at Ergin, indicating that she should back up because this is getting dangerous and desperate. Next roll. No, I don't want 2d12. Again! 1 hit each. From what Ergin can make out, there is a team against the Makos. And every now and again a Mako gets hit and stumbles backwards. Another Mako comes over and tries to help them. Same thing happening on the enemy side. This is the last roll. Oh no! A small sphere rolls down the passageway that they've just opened up. And as it stops, there's a shout from John Smith. And as he shouts this, he launches himself forward and lands directly on top of the explosive device. It rips him to pieces, sending his crew scattering, his rest of his Makos, the other 4 of them scattering, and Ergin reeling under the concussive blast of this explosion. There is movement from the smoke as it starts to clear. The acrid scent of burning metal, burning plastic, and burning hair fills the air. In a daze, Ergin looks up. And this time she looks up into a 60-year-old phaser that is pointed directly at her. Its weird T shape with circular emitter points directly at her. I don't think you're going to want to move there. Now, who the hell are you and why are you here? Says a voice. The first officer looks across the clean cell to another cell where the chief helmsman is. Your comments are driving me crazy. They're very funny. I don't understand. We told Van Bosk everything that we knew. And yet we've heard nothing from him. Sandy, who was lying down on his bunk, sits up and gives the naive first officer a broad smile. When one is dealing with these kinds of subterfuges, at least the hollow novels that I've read, They all maintain that there's a duplicity going on. The leaders always know what's happening. Those in the ground don't know what's going on. And in this case, we have the captain over there who, from what we can understand, has a memory from 5 or 4 years ago before either you or I joined the Wellington. So the captain has somehow got a double. But why would this double be in the hands as a prisoner of the aliens? This makes no sense. And why would the captain not know that he has a double? Or does the captain know he has a double? This is why he sent us down here, to investigate, to find his double, only to bring the double back to the ship, or perhaps for the double to be murdered before he gets back to the ship, and thus closing the case on his double. The first officer is incredulous at the way in which the helmsman is ranting and raving and going on in all different directions. I'm going to stop you right there, Sandy. I think you're overthinking this a little bit. I don't think the captain knew that he had a doppelganger down here. It would seem very odd. And from what I understand, the Admiral redirected us here against the captain's wishes. He was most vocal about not wanting to come here after the dimensional issues that we had. So I don't think that this was part of the captain's grand... I think you're following a conspiracy line there. But perhaps this is what they want you to think. Perhaps the captain knew exactly where his clone was, and so engineered us to enter that rift at just the right time. No, Sandy, I think you're overshooting. Okay, fine. So, let us say, this is not the case. The captain did not know that there was a doppelganger down here. This is fine. I will accept this. But why would the captain have a clone that does not know it is a clone? That thinks it has been here for the past few weeks, but as a memory that is 4 years old. Ah, well, now you are starting to make sense. Let's see, says the first officer. Let's put 2 and 2 and 12 together, shall we? The helmsman does not look particularly convinced. Using reason, for that is what Malik will use, and medicine, that's a 16. Malik is going to try to see how it would be that a character believes that they have been here for a few weeks, which is impossible because the captain has been on the USS Wellington for many weeks, many months, many years, as a matter of fact. How would it be that they could believe that they were here for a few weeks, and yet they are years behind in their knowledge? 3 and a 16, so it's a split. Well, 16 was the number, wasn't it? Reason and medicine, so 16. So it's 2 successes, but barely. I believe that the captain that is in the cell next to us is a clone. A copy made from a medical scan 4 years old. But the copy was only made a few weeks ago. This elicits a grunt from the cell next door where the captain is sitting. I understand that you believe me to be a clone, but I assure you, I remember everything to the letter. It does appear, however, that you believe that I have been in charge of the USS Wellington for the past 4 years. I have not been part of the USS Wellington. I've been serving as first officer aboard the USS Gleason. And the Wellington is an Excelsior. I don't think I'd be put in charge of an Excelsior. Not yet, anyway. The first officer looks at the floor well, I'm very sorry to say this, but if you were, let us say, a clone somehow duplicated down to the very memory enneagram that you have in your head, you certainly would think that. But we know a very different captain, one who is in charge of an Excelsior-class starship, the USS Wellington. Or do we? Says the helmsman from across the corridor, a little smug that perhaps the captain or the first officer's logic is not working as well as she had hoped. We will return next week to find out more of what the hell is going on. If you are a fan of Star Trek, Dr. Carol Marcus, Protomatter, clones, well, it's all a little bit Spockish, if you ask me. Anyway, still didn't get to answering why I set a 4-year gap and a 60-year gap. Actually, we did. We did. I tell a lie. I absolutely did. So, one last poll before I go. And for that, we need different music, if you please. Let's go with this one. And so the last poll of the night is yes or no poll. Do you want me to tell you why I chose 4 years and 60 years with my cryptic clue of to buy time? Or do you think you've already worked it out? Yes or no? Yes, you want to know why? No, you don't. You want to call it end of the stream. Let's go to bed. Let's call it a night. Thanks for playing. We're over. We're done. Just to remind you all that we are playing the Modifius Star Trek Captain's Log solo game, solo TTRPG game. We have got music supplied by Monument Studios, and that's the fantasyplus.app. That is their website. If you use the code GreatGM, you get a month's free use of the music that they've got. Some beautiful music. I mean, listen to this stuff in the background. Looking at the poll, we've got just over 10 folks that have voted, 12 folks now. That's more than half that are still watching. So yes, you want to know. All right, here we go. Ending the poll now. And so very, very, very quickly, when you are running games, when you're running role-playing games, and when I'm running a solo game like this, everything is being made up based on one or two little keywords that the book has given us. And those keywords were conspiracy theory gone wild, deep space exploration, peaceful planet offers respite. And so it's in the back of my mind all the time. Conspiracy theory gone wild, conspiracy theory gone wild, conspiracy theory gone wild. And so you go, okay, well, they've discovered something. What do they discover? What's weird? What's cool? What's wonderful? 4-year-old medical files. I chose 4-year-old medical files. It could have been a year. It could have been 2. It could have been 10. But I felt that 4 was a random number at the edge of the values that I was looking for. It needed to be quite out of date, but not so out of date that it wouldn't work. I needed in my back pocket that wherever the story went, this conspiracy theory was going to be useful. I had also established that there was someone masquerading as the Wellington and as the captain, and someone that the Van Bosk would recognize as the captain. So I needed to account for where was the captain. It could be holography, but this is the 2340s, so holography was coming along, but wasn't yet there completely. And it felt a bit weak to just have it as a manipulated video image over view screen. So I thought, okay, well, what if we use old medical data to surgically alter an alien to look like the captain? So let's use older data, because that might give me an in to say, oh, but the captain doesn't have a scar, whereas the new the present captain does, and the old one doesn't, and that sort of thing. So by putting in that 4-year gap, it gave me room to come up with potential ideas. And the 60-year-old technology that too was me throwing in just a random number that was from the past to make it weird, to make it unusual, and to say, well, in 60 years, a lot can happen. But this base is from 60 years ago. I had no inkling about Dr. Carol Marcus or anything along those lines. That wasn't part of my idea. That idea, the idea of Dr. Carol Marcus and what the 60-year-old technology had to do with it, that came from you. That came from you voting for liquids. What is the liquid behind the door? It's a green ooze, it's a green slime. What could that liquid be? And they're on a desolate moon, because we rolled randomly for what that moon was that they were on. It was desolate, it was miserable, it was isolated. And so I was like, well, think, brain, think. 60 years earlier, who was looking for desolate moons? Oh. Dr. Carol Marcus was looking for desolate moons to use for their Genesis project. This is Star Trek II. Okay, well, they must have tested it. And we know that they tested it a couple of times because she mentions that in the film somewhere, I think. And we saw the first one, the first place that they attempted. So we had that. So I was like, okay, cool. So it's got to be protomatter that does this green sludge stuff. And if you don't know, protomatter is a highly unstable element which is avoided medically by the Federation because it's unstable, it's unpredictable, you can't know exactly what it's going to do, which kind of fits in quite nicely. Where are the aliens with 4-year-old technology, and why did they have those files? Well, that I will leave for next week. But at least you know that the idea of 4 years is enough for the crew to be able to identify clones, because I did not want to have a situation where the captains couldn't prove who they were and all that kind of stuff, because that I think is not for this mission. This mission is about conspiracies, and so there we are. That's where it came from. It's not as exciting once you see what's going on, but maybe you guessed that already. Maybe you kind of gone, oh, okay, we've done that. So when my players ask me questions, or when I need to twist it up, or when I need a thing, so like this is an hour-long show. So at the end of every hour, I need to twist it up. I need to add something that gets you going, oh, okay, what's going to happen next? And those cliffhanger moments, you do it in role-playing all the time. Adding in something that's got a weird time and that somehow links back can be quite useful. Don't overdo it, obviously, because you can end up in serious trouble. But anyway, there we go. Right, so all that remains is for me to wish you all a fantastic day, evening, morning, night, whatever it might be that you are going to be experiencing, and to say thank you for watching. Hit that like button if you like the show, and until next week, I wish you and yours the happiest.